Good evening, folks. Is there anybody there? Can anybody hear me? Can anybody see me? Hello there. How's it look? How's the picture and how's the sound? We're using Streamlabs. So I've been working hard this week trying to get this together. Looks like we've had a bit of success, so I don't know how it's coming across your side. It's not showing me as any viewers yet, but obviously there's somebody there. So can you hear me, and is the image okay, the video? Yeah, can you hear me, you guys? So I'm using, you can see me, is the quality okay? We're using Streamlabs, so I don't know how it's coming across. Yeah, excellent. Oh, that's good news. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to kick off with a subject we've covered before about the importance of these MERS that they've got going on. Which we have discussed that it's going to be a situation whereby the corporate deals with a mayor, police and crime commissioner, and between them they're going to run everything. Okay, so the judiciary, etc., comes all under that same format. Well, that's brilliant. If picture's good, it sounds good. Excellent. The intro should have sounded a lot better as well, because I noted trying it any other way just through YouTube weren't coming across very well. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the MERS. So it says, so this is written by Chris Byrne on Monday 9th of May 2022. It says, why North Yorkshire and York needs a new MER to unlock extra powers and funding. So basically, off that headline alone, we can see that if you want funding, unlocking our money, let's get this in the right form. Your money, your tax, your national insurance, everything else. If these corporate systems want to open more of your money via the government, they have to have a MER system, PCC. It's full corporate control, or fascism. That's what it is. It says a directly elected mayor for North Yorkshire and York must be introduced to secure the most powers and funding from the region's planned devolution deal. Councillors have been told. So it's the devolution deal that needs to, region devolution deal, that we need to demolish. And obviously first we need to know what it is. Henry Murison, director of Northern Powerhouse Partnership, whoever they are, has written to every council on what will be the new North Yorkshire Council to urge them to back the creation of mayoral role for the region. It comes after government levelling up white paper specified that only areas with directly elected mayors could hold developed powers, such as receiving a long-term investment fund, establishing development corporations to lead local regeneration projects, and being given priority for improvements to rail services and stations. Regeneration means more housing for immigrants. It means closing the town centres, turning the shops into flats. That's what regeneration is. Focusing your all to the supermarkets for your only outlet for food. Yeah, that's what regeneration projects mean. So this is, remember, our money that the government, in a levelling up white paper, has said you can only get our money for our areas if they set up this load of shit. A spokesman for Michael Gove's Levelling Up department today confirmed that the government wants to see more areas have a high-profile, directly elected leader. Yeah, elected by who? We're not putting them up, are they? It's the corporate boys, the stakeholder committees. They're the ones putting these tossers up. So it's not our vote. You know what I'm saying? Really, that counts. It's the corporate. Last week's council election saw 90 councillors voted onto what will become the new unitary authority of North Yorkshire Council from next year, replacing the existing county council and 7 district councils. Ooh, this is not good. So 90 councillors were voted in these elections, probably unknowing to most people. While the Conservatives have majority control of the new system, their vote share plummeted across the region, with them now holding just 52% of seats, compared to 76% under the old county council system. See, again, this is also taking things away from our political parties and just handing everything into the hands of this corporate MER system. The shake-up is a key requirement for the government for a potential devolution deal for North Yorkshire and York, with the latter council continuing as a unitary authority to run in tandem with the new North Yorkshire Council. The deal is currently being negotiated with the government, with an announcement and an offer for devolution expected this summer, before public consultations is staged later in the year. Public consultations, well, yeah, so they have their own bunch of little organisation in the towns, full of local businessmen who are already embedded to the council. They'll present it to them, they'll get the nod, and that's claimed to have public consultation. So it's not a public consultation at all, or it is in the corporate. Mr Murison has written to every North Yorkshire Council urging them to work cross-party to get the best possible devolution deal for the region. No wonder we've got nonsense going on in our local political parties. They're not going to be required in a bit. The maximum powers and funding are only available for a devolution deal with the directly elected mayor. Get this, this is what your government, well, the corporate government is doing with your tax. So while you keep paying tax to this bunch of shit, this is just going to keep moving forward. As the Tees Valley has proven, a large urban metropolitan area is not a prerequisite, and the mayoral model can prove hugely successful in areas where the economic geography is dominated by towns. Locally led economic growth strategies to raise productivity in areas such as these are vital. Nonsense. Nonsense. The North of Tyne combat, plus you've got all this shortage now with food and etc. Again, forcing control of it and purchase of it just to these supermarkets. Ooh, we're in some big trouble if people don't start to wise up to what this actually means. The North of Tyne Combined Authority shares much of its geography with the Borderlands Growth Deal, which included Carlisle, parts of Scotland and rural Northumberland. And these places are already reaping the benefits, are they now? Devolution is flourishing in some places while... See, devolution means off and out of your hands as a voting public and into the hands of these corporate crown numpties. Metro mayors are needed for cities, towns and rural areas alike if we are serious about building a truly productive, prosperous northern powerhouse. Today we ask you to take the pledge to work cross-party with all your newly elected colleagues and neighbouring authorities to back devolution with a directly elected mayor. So whatever they've got your vote with by saying they're going to do, forget it, they're all going to jump on board with this bunch of Johnny-come-latelys. You're going to get shafted. You know, whatever they need to do against your finding, blah, 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 these tossers are going to let happen while they bunch into this cross-party shit to pull in this full-on corporate madness or fascism. That's fascism. You know, when the corporate system merges with your civil system, fascism is in place. And that was answered to a question given to Benito Mussolini when he was asked to define fascism. That's what he said. Corporate, you know, combines with the state. Fascism is in place as a system. As a political system, it's in. Thatcher started that off. I am afraid to say I've always been a Tory in my outlook. You know, these Labour people have always been like little shitty backstreet numpties backhanding each other. You know what I mean? And I've never liked that. So I've always been of a conservative outlook. What this bunch are today, calling themselves Tories, they are not conservative. In fact, if anything, they're the bigger communists than Gordon Brown and Tony Blair. In my opinion. However, because you've got to remember, we've discussed this as well. Communism is a road to monopoly. Capitalism is also a road to monopoly. You know, the two sides of the same coin, flicked by the banker. Both of them are pulling in monopoly. A government spokesman said, we want to see more areas with high-profile, directly elected leader who will become accountable to local citizens and act as a champion for the area. See, they're using citizen. No, they're talking about subjects here. All this corporate system is being pulled under this fraudulent royal family. Yeah? I'm not abusing our system. It's the fact that we have a family that shouldn't be sitting on top of our system, pushing this. So the word citizen is incorrect. They means subject. The Levelling Up White Paper outlines plans for a devolution deal with York and North Yorkshire, and we are keen to work together with local leaders in the region to transform communities and respond to local priorities. Again, they're using the word communities. They're talking about stakeholder communities, not you. York Council leader Keith Apston has previously said while the mayoral system is not perfect, he would be taking a pragmatic approach to negotiations. So Keith Apston's loving it. So he's one of the bum boys pushing this for him. North Yorkshire's worst Liberal Democrat run York in terms of the scale and population, and elected mayor is likely to be Conservative. Councillor Aspen said earlier this year government has made it absolutely clear that the way to get the best deal in terms of funding and power is to look at the mayoral combined authority, and in that sense I am pragmatically approaching it in terms of getting the best deal for York and North Yorkshire. It will be letting down residents and businesses to not even look. Yeah, but you're not telling the residents or businesses what it actually means. It's going to mean bigger rates, you know what I'm saying, bigger rents if the council own the buildings or the corporate network. So for instance in Ireland, they've got a £20 million regeneration fund they keep going on about, but most of that's going to go to yourselves because they own most of the properties that it's going to shift into accommodation. So it's money for themselves. Bournefield Construction, one of the major landowners in Lancashire and beyond. Again, so many of these so-called funds end up going into the hands of these corporate networks. While both West and South Yorkshire have existing devolution deals and Labour mayors, in Tracy Brabin and newly elected Oliver Coppard, there are currently no plans for one in East Yorkshire. So they're obviously pushing this. So they've done it in the cities, so Manchester's got one, they've all got them, London's got them. So now they're moving it out into the sticks. I mean, Capita is the mover and shaker for this system outside of the cities. Proposals for Hull and East Riding devolution deal are currently progressing on the basis that the two councils do not want a mayor and would instead prefer a combined authority chaired by one of the council bosses on a rotating basis. That sounds like a better idea. It is unclear whether that situation will change as a result of the Liberal Democrats taking control of full council from Labour in this month's local elections. Probably will. Liberal are far closer to the Inner Temple than even the Tories. The Tories are more being controlled through blackmail from everything that was going on from the 80s. With arms, human trafficking, all the shit that goes on the background of war and on the back of war. So Labour set the wars going, and the Tories sort of, through what have been set up by that, have been benefiting from it, because so many of the funders are arms producers, arms dealers, and all that goes with it. As arms dealer sounds okay, but on the back of that comes human trafficking, organ trafficking, slavery, you name it. The Yorkshire Post, we're committed to speaking truth to power on behalf of the people we call God's own country, their home. Our political team and Westminster correspondent are Yorkshire's eyes and ears in the corridors of power. If you'd like all the latest political... So they're bigging themselves up. That's the North Yorkshire... where is it? North Yorkshire Post. So they big themselves up as giving it to you as it is, but they haven't given you anything, really. So that's that done. So let me have a look. Sorry, I might just get a bit slow on this... Bang. Okay, so that's that. Now, where are we? So, the title of this live stream, I don't know whether it came up correctly or not, is Bailiffs. Bailiffs, debt collectors, and in fact the police, and you. Because, to be quite honest, people just really don't understand their own rights, the powers of bailiffs, as opposed to debt collectors, because they're different. Debt collectors don't have any power of enforcement at all. None whatsoever. And that you need to understand as well, because you've got Marston's, you've got Shearbrook. These are massive companies. And Marston's, we know, is just run by one family. So really, what we need to be found out with Marston's is who is this family and what is the contact address. Because you don't want the PO boxes because you can't service. So that needs to, if you want to start to undermine these companies on a real level, then we need to know who the family is and how we serve them. Because they're a right bunch of Johnny-come-latelys, but they terrify people and taking a lot of property and money off people that really can't afford to be paying that, especially if they, if they're feeding the children. So let's have a look. I think we're on Safari. So I'm just going to be, because of this this new format, it's just, so we're there. So I go here. Right. So this is basically the law. Okay, this is case law. So there's no in between, no arguments, no nothing. This is law, case law, English case law, in relation to bailiffs and when the police are involved. Okay, which again, the police come, you automatically assume the police are on the side of the bailiff. The police are there to upkeep the peace. If they step off that and promote the bailiffs in any way, they're into civil matters. They're in trouble, Okay, they're not acting correct. But they depend on you not understanding anything because they're all working together. The police are funded by the same bunch that the debt collectors are collecting for. So I'll shift this over. I'll just have a look at what you guys are saying. Oh, hello everybody. It's good that you can see. That's a good picture. It's good that it's good. Mayor's, what's good is one of them going to do? Well, it's not so much what good are they going to do, it's just the fact that by consent we're handing our entire system over to this corporate system right down to your village. Because they've done the cities, as we know. This levelling up paper is about expanding that out into the towns and the villages, into the sticks, as it were, which is what England is. It's not the cities. Cities are shitholes. You know what I'm saying? This is why they flooded the sticks with these immigrants who, I'm really not impressed with what I'm feeling and seeing now in relation to these so-called guests. The attitude isn't acceptable. It doesn't operate according to English law. English law is very clear. You have to, this is the way it is. If you don't, you're out, you're in prison, you're anything but you're off the street. But it also, for these immigrants, it's not supported by their own book. It's supported by the Sharia, but the Sharia doesn't support the book. It's contrary to the book. If they haven't sought the knowledge to understand the next commandment, which is to live by the laws of the nation you're in, they didn't seek the knowledge, so they don't know. They're all thinking government policies law. It's not. That being the case, they're contrary to the Quran. The Quran then brings another command in, it's kafir, which means that all these numpties that are running around now acting contrary to law are not even Muslims. And that needs to be taken on board by everybody. They're not, and they have to be looked at in the way that they are, instead of this nonsense that's being pushed around as like, oh, you mustn't upset anybody. No, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm feeling and seeing an upgrade in certain behaviours that I'm not happy with. So we need to start to take a look, pay attention, and as I've said, the militia is backed by English law. Nothing I will suggest to anybody out there would be contrary to English law. Everything that I am pushing and promoting has the backing of England and nothing else. Nothing else. So even in all, devolution, more corporate takeover. But we really do need to get a grip of this because people don't understand what it actually it means. Because the government are not telling you. Public consultation, they can talk all day, but they're not actually consulting the public. It's the stakeholders. The ones that are getting cash out of the council contracts. They're going to keep their mouth shut. Because if they start causing trouble, they're not going to get the money feed's going to stop. Which is why me being tied to nothing and nobody apart from fact and reality, it didn't work well for them because I asked questions they couldn't answer without showing everybody what they're actually doing. Because I'm wide awake and I don't miss a trick. And that's basically all I would say are my attributes. I don't miss a trick. I can see what it needs to be seen. And my job then is to present it for others to at least look at and make their mind up what they feel and think about it. But more importantly, what are you going to start to do about it? Okay, the service of law under English common law constitution, it's a duty on every English native, or let's rephrase that, every Englishman or woman who's in support of the common law, the idea of England as a nation. It's a duty incumbent on you if you take on that role to service the law, and that means against anything, any body, any organisation that's contrary to it. The current systems are not going to do it because they've been captured and they're operating against England. I see no signs of the police waking up, at all. So again, they're not servicing law, so they're acting contrary to law. These are the concepts that the militia mind needs to start to understand and take on board, because things are moving. And, when things start to get pretty bad with food, etc., I do believe the natives are going to suffer most because they're not networked. People think they network because they know some of the Masons and they know some of the Jesuits. No, they're part of the problem. They are the facilitators of this empire, this corporate system. So you're not networked. If you're depending on what was as backing you, got your back, it's not the case. It's really not the case. When you have a debt and it goes to bailiffs, debt collectors, reasonable debt, it's cleared. Of course it is. Absolutely. So no need to go into contact with the bailiffs or debt collectors. Your original contract has ended. You're quite correct. But they're not all bought. There are... So I've subscribed to a couple of these so I can get to see how they're promoting themselves. And not all debts that are being collected have actually been sold. The company will hire these debt collectors to actually try and collect the debt. Remember this when it comes to debt, that it's pretty... 6 years from the moment of default, there's a 6-year time counting down. And they have to get joinder with you within that 6 years. So one way you can do it is just make sure that they don't get any joinder for 6 years. That's the end of it, It's the joinder. This is why they come round. This is why they send letters. If you answer those letters, it's joinder. If they can get hold of you, if they can talk to you and get you to identify as the debt account with the surname, then that's joinder, and the clock starts again. So that's another thing that people might need to remember. Now, I've just remembered there's something else I want to look at first before we go into this case law, and that is, it's actually a Sun report, believe it or not, but it's exceptionally interesting. So shift over to that. Oh, it's not shifting. Yeah, that's interesting. Seem to be having a bit of an overload here on this. My computer's overloaded, it would seem. So you got the notifications. Well, that's good. Oh, from the tests. Oh, well, that's good. That's quite good if the notifications are actually working. Now, I don't know whether I've gone off or not. Okay, the camera's still on. So I'll just bang that on while we try and get this. So when I open Firefox, it seems to be causing me serious juice problems. So maybe we leave Firefox closed for a while, and I'll go back to another browser which doesn't seem to be causing us any problems. So there we go. I've put this up as a document actually in the website, so it's accessible. Now, this is case law, as I've said. So, bailiffs and police involvement case law. If a police officer is in attendance and assists the bailiff to gain entry or persuades the debtor to open the door, then any levy the bailiff makes is void and the debtor can sue for damages. Did you get that? So, if the police in any way encourage the bailiff or persuade you to do what the bailiff said, whatever goes on after that is void, and you can sue the ass off both. And that's Skidmore versus Booth, 1834. Okay, remember this is case law, not the shit and garbage you get in the Star Courts. And I'll just reiterate again, as I've said before, if you want a chancery this, you're looking at presenting your case so that you're showing that the rights of the beneficiary have not been upheld. For that to hold true, you have to show in your paperwork and everything you do that you have presented your standing, and that standing, as I've suggested, can be thus, that you, if somebody's talking to you and they're looking for this particular name, you can say, are you bringing a trust action? They'll look at you probably like you'd have to say, well, that's fine. As rightful beneficiary, that's fine. But as settler, I'm happy to I'm happy to give you the position of trustee in this matter. And I'd now like to know how you're going to enrich the beneficiary in this trust action. That's sort of because you've accepted the trust exists, but you've also, as is your right, you've presented yourself as rightful beneficiary, but not in the role as beneficiary. You move to settler, because the beneficiary just don't do anything. Take on the role of settler, which again is administrator. You can executor, but the settler. So what we do basically is look for the uppermost terms that cover or appear to have everything else beneath it. And settler is, in essence, a better word to use than executor or administrator. So you'd make it clear that as settler for the trust, you're happy to appoint him as trustee in a fiduciary role, because these are civil servants, because the police work for the Crown. Okay? Anybody who works for the Crown is a civil servant. We've done a video on that as well, so we've made that clear and shown it to be true. So they're civil servants, yeah? Again, also, if you know the police, or you get the feeling the police are going to act contrary to how they should, the first thing you do when you're communicating with the police is ask them if they're on their oath. If they say, yeah, you want to see the warrant card, then you know they're a constable. They are solid, accepted, admitted constable. They can't be messing about with civil law. Their only role is in the service of law, in spite of government policy and in spite of public opinion. Okay? So again, that's another way, if you're looking for suing for damages, you could go the chancery way by showing in your paperwork, etc., everything you do, the language you use. Make sure you've recorded it all. Never go door to these people without recording. And uphold your standing. Then you can show to the chancery that your rights, the beneficiary's right, the rights of the beneficiary, have not been upheld. Then you can sue for damages. And it would probably be, it's quite a serious act for the police if they were to assist the bailiff to gain entry, or, and remember this is important, persuade you to open the door and let them in. Okay? So that's the one. There must be very good reasons for arresting a debtor on the grounds of preventing a breach of the peace. Only a serious and imminent threat justifies arrest. Okay? So, remember also, they're on your property. So if they're in your garden, especially if you've put private on your gate, you've given notice, you've done everything you have to do. If they don't see it, that's up to them. But on your land, you can get angry. You can get angry in your tone because these people are trespassing. If you're not giving them permission to be there, whomever they are, it's a trespass, and you have the right to defend your property and yourself, your flesh and blood. But I'm not speaking of getting excited and throwing, sticks around and knives, etc. We're just specifically saying they have to have excellent reasons for even contemplating arresting you for breach of the peace on your own land. You'd have to be a serious and imminent threat. in that respect, and that's Fawkes versus Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, 1998. So that's 1998, and that was versus... You see, these are the people you want to bring to book. Chief Constable, but more importantly, because the way they've set it up with this Mer PCC Chief Constable, is the Chief Constable is there to take the rap. Really what you want to do is hold the PCC, because he chooses the Chief Constable on the grounds that the Chief Constable will implement the will of the PCC, who's implemented the will of the Mer. Okay? Let me just come back to this, because it looks like my machine's really using juice. Is it alright? Can you still hear it? It's gone all black. It's back. Okay. You can only deal with persons. You're right, exactly. No, it's not about never give your name, I'd say, Ray. This is another thing. They'll say ID. So they'll say your given name. Well, that's hearsay. Yeah, it's hearsay. Now, if I wanted to be flippant, I could say, well, I can give you the name I've given myself. Because the given name and anything else is hearsay, created by others. I don't know it to be fact. I've read that it's a fact on a certificate, but I can't state it's fact because I don't know. I was only a little baby. But like I could be flippant and say I can give you a name I've given myself, which would be life in the mix. Then they're fucked. But that'd be me being flippant. But again, you've got to understand, given name, even though you're supposed to be able to trust your mother, you were only a tiny baby and you weren't there when it was registered. You have nothing to do with that unless you accept it upon yourself. So even if they're asking for your given name, you can say it's hearsay. Now, again, if they're going on for your name, you can say your question presumes facts not in evidence, from which you can then explain how it's hearsay. It's hearsay, you had nothing to do with it, neither the trust nor the name that was given to you belongs to you or was created by you. Yeah, and those are other ways that you can play around this insistence on ID that they want. Can you still see any? Can you still hear me rather? Because it's really juiced up this. I'll carry on as we are. Right. If a police officer arrests a debtor after throwing a bailiff off the premises who had refused a request to leave, the officer is guilty of false arrest because no offence was committed and the bailiff was there illegally. I'll read that again. If a police officer arrests a debtor after throwing a bailiff off the premises who had refused a request, so if you, as a debtor, have thrown the bailiff off the premises, the officer is guilty of a false arrest because no offence was committed and the bailiff was there illegally. And that's Green versus Bartram, 1830. Remember, it's case law. It doesn't matter how far this goes back. That's the beauty of England. Okay? A police officer must arrest a bailiff for breach of the peace if he places the debtor in fear of violence or harm if that offence is made in the presence of that officer. So it has to be made in the presence of the officer. I'm pretty sure these bailiffs know this, so that's going to be a very rare thing. And that was brought as case law RV versus Errol in 1982, 1QB 427. So again, these are things you need to know for yourself. I will put the link up to this document. Maybe print it out and have it at your door, because obviously I know that so many of you out there now are going to start getting these tosses at your door. Fair play, a debt's a debt, but these people, they're like parasites, aren't they? And the more that the more you fear, the more of a mess you're in, the easier of a time these guys get, because you're in a bit of a mess and you're not on your feet and you're not ready for to uphold your freedoms. A police officer must apprehend and arrest the party that is threatening violence. And that's Redmond Bate versus Department of Public Prosecutions. The Times, July 28, 1999, Lord Justice Sedley. So a police officer must apprehend and arrest the party that is threatening violence. Now, it doesn't say whether the police are there or not. So if You see, this is interesting because during the lockdown, there were 2 occasions where two security guys on different occasions said to me, "I'll keep your effing head in," yeah, when they were getting cocky. Now that's threatening violence. So if you get that off any of these little shit-ass security boys, this is the case you would be looking at. This is a police officer must have, because when the police, you would then ring the police. If you've recorded that threat, a police officer must apprehend and arrest the party that's, and that's Redmond Bay versus Department of Public Prosecutions. The Times, July 28, 1999, most Justice Sedley. You get that? Seriously important, because I've noticed that these little shit-ass security guards, they're licensed, yeah, by the SIA. Because I've had more than one do it, I know that they're being told to do this, okay? So then that's important that you understand that policy. It's serious case law. If you can show that that's what was said, a copper has to arrest him. Now, this is interesting because that happened the other week when I was telling you about the incident on the Broadway, where one of the parties was calling everybody not only threatening violence, but actually carried it out. And the police did nothing. That's a dereliction of duty, okay? So they can get away with it on that particular part. I'm not really bothered. But I have nothing to do with it, really. But this, you know, the way that things are going to start going now, these things are so important that you get a grip of. And you know, once you've understood these, make sure all them around you, your friends, your family, understand that you at least know what you're talking about. So you can either get on the phone to them if something's happening and you can go through this, or make sure they have a copy of it themselves. If a bailiff causes a disturbance but does not make a threat, it is unreasonable for the police to arrest him. So a disturbance is acceptable, but no threat is right. But how would that work? You know, if he's on your if he's trespassing on your property because you put private on your gate, then that surely doesn't carry. And that's Bibby versus Constable of Essex, 2000, Court of Appeal, April 2000. If a person is arrested for non-payment of a debt, he can buy his freedom by paying the debt stated on the warrant. Did you know that? Yeah. So if a person is arrested for non-payment of debt, so this will be under a warrant, he can buy his freedom immediately by paying the debt stated on the warrant. How about that? Yeah. So that being the case, as soon as you're arrested, you don't even have to go to the police station. You can pay it. If they take you to the police station, you would have to ask yourself, are they trying to do business? How you make more money because you're going through a particular system? You could sue. You could sue because if you paid the warrant on your own grounds, you know, the rest is cancelled. That's Plomer v. Ball, 1837. And that council tax and court fines. Okay? In brackets, so that suggestion can be used for that. Attending without a levy on goods, breaking and entering. If a bailiff breaks into your property without a valid levy, the bailiff has a civil and criminal liability, and that's Kazanshi and Anor versus Faircharm Investments Limited and ORS, Court of Appeal. Now, what's a valid levy then? Because you've got some of these energy companies, haven't you? They've been trying this on, breaking into people's houses and changing the meters. Yeah. So that might come into use there. But what's a valid levy? You can't break into somebody's property. That's English law. So they'd have to be looked at and worked in conjunction with other laws, I would suggest. Bailiffs cannot break open a door, but can open one if it is unlocked. And that's Bud v. Pyle, 1846, 10 JP 203. But not if you've got private on your garden gate. Remember that, people. You've given notice that beyond that gate is private property. Then you're into trespass. Okay. Only a debtor's home is protected by law. Wait a minute. Bailiffs can force entry. Sorry, I've jumped on there. Bailiffs can force entry to premises that are not a dwelling house nor connected to one. Interesting. So if your business is inside your house, it's connected to one. Excellent. Only a debtor's home is protected by law. So your place of business isn't. That's worth. But then if it's connected to a home, it is a protected by law. So if a shop has a flat above, then they can't enter your shop. Now that's very interesting. That's exceptionally interesting because that would also be afforded to council. So when they were forcing entry, etc., under lockdown, they're going to be coming foul of this law, which the case law is Hodder v. Williams, 1895, 2QB 663. That's exceptionally important, and maybe that would work. So if it's for bailiffs, then council and anybody else can't break into a debtor's home. So if you're looking at fines for you for the bug, etc., there you go, people, and you could put that on your door. Bailiffs cannot force their way into a private dwelling, but can in the case of a commercial and business premises. Grove v. Eastern Gas, 1952, 1KB77. So commercial businesses are actually a little bit open to this shenanigans, which is interesting. Are we still on? High Court bailiffs break it. Again, they have to get you on person though. I once had High Court ring me, a very posh lady from London, and I can't remember the exact beginnings, but it required a prompt from me, to which she responded, "Mr. Young, I have a High Court writ against you." And I said, "No, my dear, you have a High Court writ against legal title." They put the phone down. Yeah. So the High Court can't piss about. You know, if you know what you're doing with the High Court, they know. You don't have to go into copious nonsense. You just have to present it correctly. That's all I said. No, you have a High Court writ against legal title. And they put the phone down. Okay? You know, the higher you go with these courts, the more power you have, providing you understand how to speak it, you know, how to write it. But always, it's the prime importance with anything you ever do is recording. Now that means if it's vocal, either a voice recorder or video, better. And don't be afraid to film the faces. They've come to your door. Somebody comes to your door, they don't have any rights. You know, they're not on public land, they're on yours. You can do as you please. Remember this, yeah? I forgot what I was on about then. Anyway, what were we saying? So yeah, with the High Court, the higher these courts go, the more power you've got, if you know what you're doing. And that's another interesting thing. It's the lower end where they trap you in this garbage, because if they can get you in a High Court, all the garbage that's gone on at the door, etc., whatever, will be backed and continued while you're actually in the High Court. So again, you need to remember this. Customs will walk in without a court order. Again, all this is based on person, remember, people. You know, if you've got the paperwork there and serve them as they come to your door. Can you see how I've said all along, it's so important that you about turn, come back to basics, simple, and look for the solutions in the simple rather than the complex. And then you start to realise that, oh, wait a minute, it's simple because, oh, well, that's case laws, that's simple. It's actually simplicity, there's nothing exact, you know, it doesn't go into all these nonsense hearsays because, you know, anything outside of law is hearsay. It's all hearsay. It couldn't be nothing else. Because the initial hearsay is that you're actually a piece of paper, a fiction, a trust, you know, that you are it. Because they for the joinder, it's about them getting you to say you are the trust. You know what I'm saying? That's the fiction. So have all the other presumptions and assumptions carry forward. Because you've declared yourself dead. Do you get it? It's that simple. If you declare yourself dead, every hearsay, presumption and assumption in the world and every fantasy that's ever been created carries. It'll carry by the officers involved. It'll carry on. in the courts, the star courts, and it'll carry on if you're imprisoned. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all corporate. It's all fiction. Exactly. You see, again, Ray, this is where I say it's so subtle. If you confirm your name, you said, again, you really need to get, it's not your name. Even if your mama gave it you, it's hearsay. It's hearsay. You can call yourself whatever you want. And if you've given yourself a name, it's your name. Anything else is somebody else's creation. You've got to understand that. He who creates owns. And I know you love your mummy, but never mind. Your mummy didn't know what she was doing because her parents lied to her, your parents lied to you, and if you didn't pick it up quick smart, you've lied to yours. I didn't lie to mine, but mine were too stupid to see the game. Fine, they've jumped into the shit game. Nothing I can do about it. But more importantly, I'm not there to push it. But this is what's happened. This is what's been going on. So it's never your name. They want you to confirm that you are this name. It's so subtle, Ray, honestly. And until that subconscious, it's all right knowing it all in your mind. But the minute these forces come at you, you'll shit yourself and you'll be left entirely with what's in your head. You won't have faith in it. You won't use it. You'll buckle. When you train your subconscious, there's no error. There's no fear. You know what I'm saying? That initial rush of adrenaline opens up your subconscious program because that's what you've put in it. You've recoded that part of your brain in how you deal with this officialdom. And that, to that degree, has to really embed in your subconscious is to be removed. A name. Hearsay, given. But if you say, yes, I am that, then of course you've played. Been doing it 18 years, good. My friend was caught bringing a replica black-powered flintlock into the country and raided the house. Well, yeah. So when you start to get to grips with this stuff, that's when you can start to formulate your paperwork and send your standing where it needs to go. So there's no assumptions of this stuff. You've already put it in the mix. Yeah? But it's really so important that it's all right knowing it in your mind, but if you don't program your subconscious to this shift, it will not work. You'll fall foul. They'll put something before you that triggers that shit. Fear. Mainly. Top trumps, 32 years. I victim only. No other civil debt warrants allow forced entry. Okay. What's I victim? I don't. You'll have to explain that if you don't mind, mate. SM report. 1990. Have you read? Yeah. I don't think I got into law then. 93 I shifted into out of normality. But law, towards the end of the 90s, when I'd started to understand, when I wanted to know what England were, and then I started to understand the Constitution. But to be honest, it really didn't go push for me until 2007 when I got internet. And then when I started talking with John Harris, when he first started. Misunderstanding, Sean. When they came to the door, do not confirm the name they ask of you. That's it. But what I'm I'm just using you as a thing, obviously, Ray, because this is how subtle the shift has to be. It's even down to that word, your. If you ever use it in that context, in your mind, your thought process, your written, your thinking, your speak, it's because you've not programmed that subconscious so that is your response. There is nothing else. Everything else is hearsay, garbage and pish. It's a given name. It's hearsay. It's not your creation, but you can accept it if you want. The tax man that comes, not debt collectors. Yeah, but again, a tax is it's the person that's taxable. I won't say. Remember, you know, with the sort of the path that I'm trying to help people get to grips with, and I know it's difficult because most people switch off their phone now. It's garbage, but I know its value because it's the fact of the matter in relation to the system they've set up on top of the system they don't want you using. So it is the system. You know, if you're going to say I'm not person, then you have to have another point of reference. If you're not person, what are you? Which is why I push you are man. Yeah? You're man, male or female. You're not man, woman. That's Adam shit. That's the corruption shit. We're talking about creation. We're talking about earth. Yeah? But of course, everybody's off in this sky god. It's pagan, that. Well, the Bible is clear. Created the heavens and the earth. He didn't create the world. You know? He didn't create the banking system. He didn't create the militaries. He created the earth. So you have to have a point of reference if you're coming off person. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Does it? You can't come off person to another person. What's that all about? You get it? Your only other reference, if you want to follow this path, is to understand that you are actually man. Finance loopholes. Okay, yeah. They don't come to my door. Stop them beforehand. Yeah. Well, I don't actually deal in any debt or credit. I don't deal in it. I don't use it. People need to learn to file claims. Yeah, exactly. Use affidavits in those claims. Yeah. And you don't necessarily... well, yeah, right. Back to the shindig, folks. So bailiffs cannot force your way into a private dwelling, but can in the case of a commercial and business premises. The next is contrast. So it's important. A bailiff breaking down the door of a commercial warehouse is unlawful. Bowen, LGA, and the bailiff's appeals dismissed. American Concentrated, Musco v. Endre. Oh, so that's it's case law, but it looks like it's. Oh no, it's not. So it might have been an American company. So yeah, you can't damage, which is why they have locksmiths. But in effect, they have actually damaged your lock to get in, haven't they? Aren't they? So it's damage, you know, that's that calls in law. Provided a bailiff enters a property peacefully and without breaking in, he can break open inner doors inside the property. So he can get his foot through the main door. He can pretty much go where he wants in a commercial property. And that's Lee v. Gansel, 1774, 1 Count 1. And remember, don't get baffled by these dates. This is English case law. What the no-hide is hoping to replace. And English case law is in the Commonwealth. Every nation that's part of the Commonwealth or was tied to England before the Hanoverians, this is available to you if you haven't claimed complete independence. A bailiff entering through an unlocked door can break the lock if the door is subsequently locked while still inside. Right, so if he enters and gets in, and then you lock him and try and keep him in, he can actually break the lock if he's stuck inside. Well, I think if you've got the balls to lock the door behind him, you're going to pretty much tie him up, aren't you, as a trespasser? But that's only the case if you know how to uphold your standing. And before the bailiff came and knocking, you put your standing towards this company, the court, whatever, bailiffs, whoever, sheriffs even, Because sheriffs are still dealing on person. Remember this, people. You're a citizen, not a subject. And that's Pugh v. Griffin, 1838. 7 A&E 827. Forced entry into homes. A bailiff in execution of a warrant or a writ may not make forcible entry to a dwelling house unless and until he has completed seizure of the goods in consequence of the first entry. Now, let me just read that again. A bailiff in execution of a warrant or a writ may not make forcible entry to a dwelling house unless and until he has completed seizure of the goods in consequence of the first entry. Now, as I understand that, what the first entry must be speaking of is, you know, if they can get in first and they take a walk-in possession order. So they basically go around your house and write down all your best and most expensive toys. Yeah? Kids' bedding, because they don't give a shit. You know, everything that they can make a buck out of. If they've achieved that, or classed it as a first entry, then I'm seeing that thing is what it means. It may need a little bit of a look at, but that's how I'd see that. So if you've given them the walk-in possession and the writ or warrants come off the back of that, they can make a forcible entry into a dwelling house. So don't ever sign a walk-in possession order. That's the trick. Never sign anything, you know, ever. Ever, 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 ever. Hillsbury's Laws of England, Loose Leaf Edition, Volume 1, Paragraph 9128, and originally from Semaine v. Gresham, 1604, Yelverton, 29. A debtor can remove right of implied access by displaying a notice at the entrance. Did you get that? So I said notice, you can put private property. However, which is a removal of implied access. So a debtor can remove right of implied access by displaying a notice at the entrance. Maybe we need to get all these little door people that make these little signs. Start giving them some work. And this was endorsed by Lord Justice Donaldson in the case of Lambert v. Roberts in 1981. 72 CR App R 223. Get important. A debtor can remove right of implied access. Because everything they do, whether it's Eon jumping into your ass, because that's how I caught doing it once to somebody, my brothers, or any other tosspot energy company, if you've removed the right of implied access on that door, it ain't happening. It ain't happening unless it's a bailiff with a warrant on the back of a walk-in possession order you signed as person. Alright? So look. And placing such a notice is akin to a closed door, but it also prevents a bailiff entering the garden or driveway. Knox v. Anderton, 1983, Criminal Law 115OR, Elvoy Leroy Roberts, EWCA Criminal. Now, can you see why these new building estates that they're putting up don't have front fences, like America? Yeah, so many American properties, you look at the films, etc., they don't have fences on the front. They have their letterbox outside the home, but there's no fence. And these new builds are the same. So you're going to have to start putting fences up on the front and it's clear that you're removing the right of implied access. Effort on your part. So we're giving you examples of good creative info, but it's going to take that creative action, as we said before, for you to activate this protection for yourself. And that was Knox v. Anderton, 1983. Okay? Crim LR 115OR V. Leroy Roberts, 2003. EWCA Criminal 2753. Okay? Now then, debtors can also remove implied right of access to property by telling him to leave. Did you get that? Telling him to leave. So if he's in your driveway and he's not leaving, you've told him to, you've recorded it, yeah? You need them Johnny Policey boys down, don't you? Okay, but you need to know what you're doing. So when they come to you, they've come with a set piece, They want to ID you, they want to join you, they want this. You're going to have this set piece embedded in your subconscious. Yeah? You're leading them into the trap, in other words, of their own making. Alright? Look at it, you've got to look at these stuff like this. So, debtors can also remove implied right of access to property by telling them to leave. And that's Davis v. Lyle, 1936. 2KB 434. Similarly, McCardle versus Wallace, 1964, 108. Sol. Joe 483. A bailiff must leave the premises when told to do so. Robson and another v. Hallett, 1967, 2QB 939. A person having been told to leave is now under a duty to withdraw from the property with all due reasonable speed, and failure to do so, he is not thereafter acting in the execution of his duty and becomes a trespasser, with any subsequent levy made being invalid and attracts a liability under a claim for damages. Do you get that? So they can't charge you for that visit, but you can claim for damages. I'll read that again. A person having been told to leave, you've removed implied access, is now under a duty to withdraw from the property with all due reasonable speed, and a failure to do so, he is not therefore acting in the execution of his duty and becomes a trespasser, with any subsequent levy made being invalid and attracts a liability under the claim for damages. So you have a claim for damages then. Morris v. Beardmore, 1980, 71 CR APP 256. If the bailiff has already started to make a levy, he can no longer be made to leave and he cannot be assaulted. If the bailiff has already started to make a levy, he can no longer be made to leave and he cannot be assaulted. So then you get the police and you're having him for no longer, after a failure, he's not acting in the execution of his duty. Alright? So you've got to tell him to leave immediately. Yeah? And remember, you're removing the implied right of access to the property. Always better if you got it on your gate. You know what I'm saying? Get a fence up, get it on your gate. So the only way they can come in is through your gate. You know, times are changing, people. You know, the days of everybody knowing everybody in the community, everybody caring for everybody else, doors left open, everybody in and out of everybody's is over. It's over. You know, you need to start. You can't wallow in this nonsense, just carrying on in this way. You know, we've got these, our guests starting to act exceptional and not well. That's going on. You know what I'm saying? People are flipping from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Things are changing. You have to change with it. A bailiff must leave the premises when told to do so. Robson and another v. Hallett, 1967. 2QB 939. Okay? A person having been told to leave is now under a duty to withdraw from the property with all due reasonable speed and a failure to... Oh, we've done this, haven't we? And becomes a trespasser with any subject... Yeah, but sorry, I think I went up there before. Yeah, if a bailiff has already started to make a levy, he can no longer be made to leave and cannot be assaulted, so you have to get the police. Bailiffs cannot force their way into a private dwelling. So if they put their foot in your door, yeah, that's trying to force their way in. You've got to get that. And that's Grover v. Eastern Gas, 1952. Bailiffs cannot force their way into a private dwelling. 1952, 1KB77. Otherwise, a door left open is an implied license for a bailiff to enter. Okay? So there's rules for this term implied. And it's given license. Yeah? So you need to understand that they're coming with that in their mind and that's what they're looking for. You don't know these tricks, so you're doing it. When you know these tricks, you know you're standing. So it's otherwise a door left open is an implied license for a bailiff to enter. So you have to revoke the implied right of access. This can be done in paperwork if you're communicating before you get a visit, but more importantly, you know, sometimes they play sly. You get the paperwork and then you get bailiff's rent same day after. I know how they play. So you do need to get this together. You need to remove that implied right of access off your front gate and another on your door. and make it look nice, whatever you do, so it's there. I mean, this is why when we were younger, a lot of people had private, no trespassing on the fences, you know, around the land, etc. Because you're calling in the law, you've given notice. If they go anywhere else, they're up for the label. Likewise, a person standing back to allow the bailiff to walk through, but the bailiff must not abuse this licence by entering by improper means or by unusual routes. So they can't be trying to get in through unusual routes. So that's a window. Can't be getting. That's nobody goes in. You don't go through, get into your house through the window unless you're locked out. So it's an unusual route. Okay? So likewise, a person standing back. So if you let them in, yeah, again, it's implied licence. That's how they take it. Same with police. You know, they're looking for implied licence in all these situations. And that's Ancaster v. Milling, 1823, 2 DNR 714, or Rogers v. Spence, 1846, M&W 571. Ringing a doorbell is not causing a disturbance. Grant v. Mosser, 1843. But of course, if you've got the shit on the door, the gate, you're not going to get to that. You're not going to get to bell. It's thinking. Nor is refusing to leave a property cause a disturbance. Now that's a little bit. Ringing doorbell is not causing disturbance. Nor is refusing to leave a property cause a disturbance. So it's not a disturbance. So if they refuse to leave, they're not. The trespass is not a disturbance. So if they're refusing to leave, you won't ring the police and say, oh, it's making a disturbance. You'd be specifically trespass, because that's what they're acting the minute they've refused to leave. When you've removed their implied right of access, yeah, even vocally. So notice refusing to leave a property cause, and that's Green v. Bartram, 1830, 4 CMP 308, or Jordan v. Gibbon, 1863, 8 LT 391. Can you see how fantastic England is? This case law goes way back just to 1600s, you know? The last Stuarts, that's when things started to change. Permission for a bailiff to enter may be refused, provided the words used are not capable of being mistaken for swear words. Yeah? So you don't want to be swearing. You need to practice your rhetoric in how you deal with these people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get excited on these live streams and everything sometimes, but when I'm speaking to these people, I'm sharp, but to the point, and I'm not giving them that much. Not that much. You know what I'm saying? You don't give them nothing. And when you know and you're confident in what you're doing, you don't need to get excited and shout and scream. You just don't need to. Your name calling. Don't need to do it. Bailey v. Wilson, 1968. Crim LR 618, or Snoop v. Mannion, 1982. Crim LR 601, or R. Rolfe v. Woking, Magistrates Court, 2005. EW8C 2922. Yeah, so you can go to 2005 for that. So you can refuse. Yeah, no, thank you. And then you ask him to leave. You've removed. Then he has to go because he's under trespass. Then you want the boys in blue. If the entry is peaceful but without permission, then a request to leave should always be made first. Okay. So if you're in airs doing what you're doing, just waltz in, which happens sometimes. You've got your doors open, and it's peaceful. A request. So what they're saying, if it's not peaceful, then you're into. See, they never speak this language, because of course the people that are taking over our country is shit scared, chicken shit cowards, and the last thing they want to remind English of is that violence, in order to protect yourself and your property, is backed by law. So just listen to the way they've worded this. If the entry is peaceful but without permission, then a request to leave should always be made first. Or an employee or other person can also request the bailiff to leave. So it doesn't have to be the debtor, it can be anybody that's an employee or anybody else in the situation. Now, they say first. Yeah, before you go and start throwing them out. Because you can, people. As long as you've got it recorded and you can back it up, because the police are going to want to know what you've done, as well as the courts. A debtor can use an equal amount of force to resist a bailiff from gaining entry. Right? Did you hear that? So that goes back to what I've just said there. Even though they don't use the terms as little as possible, because they don't want you, the public, enacting your freedom to say piss off and mean it to whomever it is that's trying to come Johnny come lately. Of course, I'm talking in terms of that you're not presenting your standing. You've given person. If the entry is peaceful, but without permission, then a request to leave should always be made first. First. So don't go flying in, all thing is gone. But if you've asked them to leave and they're still coming, then you're on. And it says here, a debtor can use an equal amount of force to resist a bailiff from gaining entry. And that's Weaver v. Bush, 1795, 8TR, Simpson v. Morris, 1813, 4 Taunt 821, and Polkinghorne v. Wright, 1845, AQB 197. That's so important because, you know, they do obfuscate these freedoms that we have as Englishmen, you know. Another occupier of the premises or an employee may also take these steps, okay? So anybody else that's inside the premises, you know they use the term occupier, you know, military. You're not an occupier. You're not resident either. And that's Hall v. Davis, 1825, 2 C&P 33. Also, wrongful would be an attempt at forcible entry despite resistance. So if you're resisting and they then try to forcibly think that's wrong again on their behalf, and it's Ingle v. Bell, 1836, 1 M&W 516. Excessive force must be avoided. Gregory v. Hall, 1799, 8TR 299, or Oakes v. Wood, 1837, 2 M&W 791. Bailiffs cannot apply force to a door to gain entry, and if he does so, he is not in the execution of his duty. That's gate as well, remember. Broughton v. Wilkerson, 1880, 44 JP 781. Likewise, placing an arm inside the door. So if they put an arm inside the door, and I would presume a foot, because it's a limb, that's classed as force. So if he puts his foot in your door, you can use whatever force you need to remove that foot from the door. So if you have an hammer, you can smash his foot on the front to get it out of the door. Yeah? As long as he sees the hammer. That's what I'm saying. You've got to, you know, this stuff, they word it so that you don't grasp the meaning of it. Now, I'm not promoting using weapons, but, you know what I'm saying? It's just about how they obfuscate your actual rights that you have in English law. So, likewise, placing an arm inside the door. So that is classed as force, and he's no longer in the execution of his duty. And that was Rossiter v. Conway, 1893, 53 JP 350. Now, it ends, if a bailiff enters a property and makes a noise and disturbs the peace, it is unlawful for the occupier to eject him, and if he refuses to leave, the police may be called. If a bailiff enters a property and makes a noise and disturbs the peace, it's unlawful for the occupier to eject him, and if he refuses to leave, the police may be called. Now that's a bit odd. So if he's disturbed the peace, you're just better off calling the police. You've asked him to leave first, but then ring the police, which is a bit odd, that. And that's Green v. Bartram, 1830. Because that's a bit, I wouldn't be calling that up, I'll tell you that now. But then you'd have to be aware of it because prosecution might. Green v. Bartram, 1834 C and P 308, or Shaw v. Chartree, 1853 CK 21. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. Do I need anything else off here? No, I don't. So that can go. Right, let's have a look. So don't know what you make of that, but I'll tell you now, you really want to absorb that, it's dynamite stuff. If you understand the concepts that I bring in, your rights, etc., you're understanding then the tricks that they're coming with, what they're trying to get, you're going to rebuff them without getting excited. Now, making videos of that and putting that online, come on, folks, is that not going to help people? Yes, it is. Let's have a look. Yeah, occupier, again, is military. Are you occupying the house? Have you nicked it? Have you actually stolen it? Don't want the military, I've nicked this, I've invaded it, I'm nicking it. No, you haven't, but that's what the word is synonymous with. Yeah, so, resident, again, not a word you want to be using. Live's another word, you know. I'm making use of the property, another. You know what I'm saying? Which you are, aren't you? You're living in it. But these traps, these words, you see, it's why it's so important that you grasp what we're saying rather than just think that you can set off and crack on. The thing is, once you do understand this path at its root, you can apply it to everything. Everything. Without you having to panic. You know, but it's really not easy. It's so difficult to do. And that's because until you program your subconscious, it's not there. I wouldn't suggest you use it. Top banana. Oh, thank you very much. Only a select few know where I live. Mood Pit being one of them. Well, if that works for you, mate, that's what they want. So now go wrong way. What's that? Yeah, it can have a contact, but remember, this trust has been created and set against your estate. Chris Hauser, you know, I like what he said in relation to he wants to cash in the trust. It matures. When your time to retire, the trust has matured. They then come to you before you recognise that and say, look, we're going to give you 25p a week. Do you want it? You go, fucking hell, mate, thanks very much, I love you. And that's your pension. No, what Chris is saying is this, he said, great stuff, I don't want your fucking miserly bits, I want the hidden account, the open account, I'll cash it in. Now, let me just put this again to you. Daily Telegraph, I got back on, subscribed, I could comment. But I can only comment there, I've not got to set up my own thing like I did before. So I got on a finance one, and I put exactly that when I've just presented to you. They blocked me from commenting, and blocked me from looking at any reports. So I've got rid of the subscription. I'm not paying to be censored. If I'm going to pay for a subscription, you'd shut the fuck up and let me put on what I'm putting on. They don't want that kind of stuff being put into the mix, people. Seriously. So I believe Chris Hauser is right on the button. How it's achieved, that's what he's trying to do. And for that, I think he's a good egg. But you've got to get a grip of this stuff. Everything that they've created is based on your estate. So do you really want to... You know, you are rightful beneficiary. That's what your certificate tells you you are. But a settler, there's civil servants. Not only are you offering a role as trustee, but it's in a fiduciary capacity. They have to act, and it has to benefit the trust or the beneficiary. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me, I'm going to rush if I don't have a fag. Sorry. Let's have a look. Trying to figure out how the 1099 I'd say to them, you've got to watch Chris Hauser. You've got to watch him and listen to everything he's saying. And the thing with Chris, he's actually quite good because he just doesn't just flow out data. He actually talks it well. So it is easy to hear what he's saying. You've long enough to compute what he's just said and not miss what it comes next. You know, I watched all his... I haven't watched him for a while. But when I did, I watched his first one first. And then I must have watched, tons. I can't remember how many of all his videos. And I thought, yeah, I like this guy. This guy knows what he's talking about. So, one of my faves is a fence or a gate. It's a clear and present message that a border exists. Yes, but words are important. You know, these systems are built on the written word. Remember that. And the spoken word. Yeah, a fence is a fence, but you need to put on there that it's private property. It's all you need to put on, private property. You can put on, you know, you can do whatever you want, but private property covers it because it's not in the public. So, you know, even on person, you've removed the assumption that it's the public persona living or occupying the address. Put Chris Hauser into YouTube. That's all you need to do. Christopher Hauser into YouTube, and you'll have a plethora. It'll keep you going for a month. Start at the beginning. Or have a look at his titles in case some of his titles do just what you need. But you're better off starting on his first one because he shows you what he's done, and then the rest of his videos is sort of showing you on what grounds he had that authority in that particular event. Lawful, not unlawful. So, easy way, you are not the person. So, if anyone wants to deal with you, then you ain't the person. If you do not confirm who you are, they cannot proceed. You just confirm you flesh and blood. Man, derived from the word of God. See, this is where a lot of people get pissed off. They don't want to say that. Derived. The system that you're all trying to deal with is based on that. You can't bring your own shenanigans into this system. How can it rebuff it? The system we're all dealing with, whether in the public or the private, is based on biblical law. Like in a lumpy. So if you want to understand the beast you're up against, you're going to have to start reckoning with that reality. Chris Hauser. Hauscr. Christopher Hauser actually put, rather than Chris. Chris Hauser, Hauscr. I've talked about this on other live streams. I even gave you his video link. It is precision, absolute precision, whether it's written or what you're saying. And the way to do it is, once that adrenaline comes and calm, don't say a word, calm and open up that subconscious box. So that's what you're coming to. And let them speak. Don't speak first. Yeah? It's implied license to come to you. Never speak first. You want to know what they're up to. What action are they bringing against the trust? Because if they can't get you to be the trust as trustee, the debtor, then that trust action has to benefit the beneficiary. You, if you hold it, if you hold the position. So yeah, precision. You can't fanny about, precision. And there's no need to fanny on with all these myriad acts that you sign. You don't need to. What you're doing is preparing your reactions to things or actions to things in a manner that presents yourself as man, understanding your roles within the trust and the ones you want to keep on. Doesn't matter what bullshit they go through in that ever thing. So you're going to have to, it's not an easy do. You've got to go through the process. But if your rights and you can show it haven't been upheld as the beneficiary, that's when you can take it to Chancery. It's when you can take it to High Court. But Chancery specifically, if you're operating on the rights as a beneficiary. But you just never be the trust. Never be the person. Never be a name. Unless it's one you've given yourself. And you can get up tomorrow and call yourself Arnold. And then at the end of the night you can have a death. And in the morning a rebirth and call yourself Harold. And as many times as you want. You can do what you want. You can create as you see fit. Just because it doesn't fit into officers' spin and game doesn't make you any less a man. It makes you a man and them children. Because they're fucked with that garbage. They can't get you to enter Disneyland. Game over. So how childish are they for getting excited about getting you to ideas? Baby boomer stuff. Yeah? That's baby boomer stuff. That 100%. That's all they know. Deception, lies, secrets. I need to be told what to do. That's it. Primary school children. That's what my kids were like from age 6 to 9. Well, maybe age 3. Because they could talk. Then that's when they push it on, they try it on. Blah, blah, blah. So that, you know, when it's like entering politics, I go into that scene and it's like going back to primary school. It really is. I just want to, hey, get your shit together. But, you know, the children, they cry. They cry and you're being bullied. They're bullied. You're bullying them then. And if they're fat, they go, oh, he's only doing it because I'm fat. If they're in a funny colour, oh, he's racist. You can't win with these children. You know what I'm saying? You can't win. They have a garbage answer every time something grown up is put before them. So always say you need to contact the person. Yeah, exactly. Create an office for your person that's not your address. You know what I'm saying? Or a P.O. box for your person. Yeah. Well, it's not your person, for the person. You are tied to it because it's raping your estate. Ultimately, we want our estate back. But they're handing it over to Johnny Foreigner. In all our nations. Militia mind. Get it in your minds, people. Things are going to start moving in a way you're not going to like. You can either be ready or you're not ready. It's entirely up to you. You know what I'm saying? It's entirely up to you. And I always say you're being readied in law. Because if you're readied in law, yeah, you don't have to be Bruce Lee. You don't have to be Neo, even. Anyone got a link for Chris Hauser? Well, just put it, Paul, just put it in YouTube. Christopher Hauser. I can't believe you guys. Well, were you not listening to me last time we did a video all about Chris? I gave you links and everything. I all thought you'd all had a look at that and you were up to speed. Ah. Hey, oh, I can't. Stop ringing me up. I'm on a live stream, you bad uns. I don't know. I'm going to have to put volume down there because that might just keep on moving. Right, volume off. Is it not coming up? If you can't get it, I'll open Firefox and bring it up. But Firefox seems to kill the stream. Imagine you're living in a game, your person is your avatar in that game, you live in the real world. So when they deal with you, you are not that avatar. And shut the door. Yeah, have any of you looked at archaic stuff since last week? He's an interesting character, I'll tell you. So we've done that. Where are we on time? Oh, an hour and a half, that's all right. So did that make sense to you, the Bailiff data? Because it's, when you pull it together like that, so thank you to You Know You Are for that. It's exceptional data. So, you know, look at this. I'll put it on. I'll put the link under the video for you to the paperwork. What I suggest you do is bring up them cases. So you know on what points were brought in. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to, you know, if you're going to use it, there's your case law. If you're going to use it and if it's been breached, just bring up the case and have a look at what points the ruling was made in the favour of. Andrea Fallon. Oh, I watched loads of arcades. Yeah, he's an interesting fella. So I watched him all last week. I absorbed a lot of his data. It's interesting because I've read so many of the books that he cites way back in the mystery school. Some books I didn't read specifically, but I were aware of because I'd read quotes from them in other works. So I spent the first week basically just acknowledging the data I could comprehend in relation to what I already knew. I had to do a lot of backtracking research on certain things as well to remind me. So that's what I did, and then we did the live stream last week. Then I also, I'm glad that you enjoyed that, but I'll put it up and you can, my advice would be print it. Stick it at your front door. But maybe more than anything, if you can put yourself in a position where you can help your friends and your family, if they get them at door, you can recite this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, this is how we're going to have to protect ourselves from these tosspots. What was I saying? Oh, okay. So then again, I've watched him up until Wednesday. I watched more of his videos. So I've pretty much come to a point now where I understand what he's saying. There are some points that we're never going to agree on. So I'd love to know if there's a few things I'd like to take his reasoning on as to why he's concluded this. Because I think he may improve. But then I'd have to understand where he's coming from first before I could decide what I think. So I've left him alone there for a while because it were interesting. We got to see him being interviewed on a couple of interviews, and you sort of get an impression of the man and his mind rather than him just throwing out data. That was interesting. I like that as well. But there are a few things where I think his narrative is off cue because he understands things in that way. But I don't know. He doesn't know. I don't know. But I still think his data is exceptionally interesting. I like how he separates fact from opinion. Are we talking about... yeah, Jason. He's a good lad and he presents it very well. I have to give him full kudos for that. But then if you're 26 years inside and if you apply yourself like he did, he learned, didn't he? So, good man. That's all I can say. I will contact him at some point. And maybe when I can formulate what it is I have concerns on, I might see if he was up for an interview, maybe. And more so now I've got this Streamlabs, it would appear going and working. That's got to be good, because now as I learn the Streamlabs, we should be able to upgrade our chit-chats a bit, because at least it'll be a bit more like is expected on the YouTube, isn't it? So I'm quite happy about that. So that's been good. Good week of getting to grips with this. Where can you research? Well, I'm sure you can access it on the internet. You'd have to go into the judiciary sites, wouldn't you? There must be somewhere available, all these case laws. Or maybe you have to go via outside and do it that way. I don't know. I'm going to have to interview Ray at some point, aren't I? And let him just loose on his much knowledge that he has. Chris is good, but he relates more to American form filling. Yeah, he does, but there are, well, let's just say, interesting developments in relation to adventures in that field. So I'll say no more. But so far, Chris's data is good, and I mean very good. So keep that in mind, people. That would be my opinion on it anyway. Well, maybe we'll have a chat about that, because at some point about the equivalence, but yeah, maybe we'll have to have a shindig at some point. Anyway, what's next? So where are we? 135. Now, it might collapse. If it collapses, I might have to come off it. But I just want to go through this while we're on the bailiff stuff. So I have to open that have to go back here. Firefox. Okay. It says, having your card towed away by a bailiff is most people's worst nightmare. However, the current cost of living crisis has seen online searches around bailiffs increase by a massive 569%. Happily, debt advice website Debt Buffer has put together a guide on everything to do with the grim business. Part of the guide deals with scenarios in which your car cannot be towed away by a bailiff. The first is a vehicle displaying a disabled badge, or which is obviously used by a disabled person. Second is any camper, van, caravan or houseboat or similar vehicle which is also someone's main home. Is it still on? It sounds like it might be... Oh, it's ramped right up. So if you're in a camper van, because it's a home, they can't take it. Oh, that's the wrong one. Are we still good? Because my computer is gone bog shite. Where is it? I think he should visit you and you can interview him live. Well, alright then, yeah, I can do that. Right. Well, you two said you were coming up anyway. I don't know what's happened to you. Thought you were chickens or something. I thought I were a monster. So you did say you were coming up and then you shit out. The third is pretty specific, but will apply to some if your vehicle is essential for your job, or if you're a taxi driver, for example, and is worth less than 1,350. So if it's worth less than 1,350 quid, you can't take it. It's also, they can't do it if it's a logbook loan, because the last payment for the finance hasn't been paid, and they can't take it if it's on a mobility scheme. Alright? So I just thought we'd have a look at that as well. So I'll just close that quick before it blows up. So camper vans can't be towed, mobility can't be towed, disability can't be towed. They can't tow your car if you rest plates. Is that absolute? Passing it on, exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. We're moving information. You know what I'm saying? Right, Ray, sound. Whenever, mate, you let me know. You can come up. And we'll, look, there's a lot of lads that said they want to come out with us from school, so, you know, it's going to be a right shindig. We can have a few beers. So, yeah, get yourselves up. We'll have a laugh. The thing is with the reg plates, that would have them come to you because they'd want to know the VIN number, because the VIN number is the original title that they're holding, that they're claiming they have ownership of it. Because before it can be given a reg plate, the VIN number has to be. It's the registration plate is assigned to the VIN number. You know what I'm saying? And we have discussed all these things. We have discussed all these things. I mean, maybe we're going to have to do a live stream just on law, because I know for most it's they don't want to sit through all me gobbing off just to get a snippet of law, but unfortunately, that's how it's panned out, and fair dues, it is as it is. While I'm grafting, I don't have the time to put a lot of shit together. I've been rescued this week by a good friend, really, because I just hadn't got anything together all week at all. I'm glad you're coming up, that's brilliant. Well, if they can't take it, well, that's interesting, but they would be after VIN number, I do know that. After BSS. Oh yeah, or before. Or we do it before. But yeah, get yourselves up, boys. We'll have some crack. Right. To the groovy stuff. How am I going to do this? Oh, that's interesting. I'm not going to be able to. So you're just going to have to look at my ugly mug while we go to Culpepper's English Physician. And let's have a look at some more groovy stuff to help the old biological system that you're stuck in. Now, this is Alexander, and it says it is also called Alisander, horse parsley and wild parsley, and the black pot herb. The seed of it is that which is usually sold, bloody F's, which is usually sold in the apothecaries' shops for Macedonian parsley seed. So it's classed new at these shops, they call it Macedonian parsley seed, but it's called really Alexander here in Blighty. Description. It is usually sown in all the gardens in Europe and so well known that it needs no further description. Time. They flower in June and July, and the seed is ripe in August. Government and virtues. It is a herb of Jupiter, and therefore friendly to nature, for it warmeth a cold stomach, and openeth stoppings of the liver, and wonderfully helpeth the spleen. It is good to remove women's courses, to expel the afterbirth, to break wind, to provoke urine, and help the strangury. And these things the seeds will do likewise. If either of them be boiled in wine, or be bruised and taken in wine, it is also effectual against the biting of serpents. And now you know what Alexander pottage is good for, that you may no longer eat it out of ignorance, but out of knowledge. Have you noticed so many of these herbs so far we covered are great for your liver? It's like, you know, what the heck? Especially if you're taking meds, you're on shit food, you need to be cleaning your liver out. Black alder tree is the next herb. It says description and names. This groweth up like a small shrub or bush and spreads in many branches. The wood is white and red at the core, the bark blackish with white spots. The inner bark yellow, the leaves somewhat like the common aider. The flowers are white and come forth at the joints with the leaves. The berries are round, first green, then red, and black when they are ripe. The Latins call it frugula, and Alias nigra baciferae. In Hampshire, it's usually known by the name of dogwood. Place. This tree or shrub may be found plentifully in St. John's Wood by Hornsey, and in the woods upon Hampstead Heath. It is also at a wood called the Old Park at Barcombe in Sussex, near the brook's side. Time. It flowereth in May, and the berries are ripe in September. Government and virtues. It is a tree of Saturn. The inner bark thereof purges down with both choler and phlegm, and the watery humours of such as have dropsy, and strengtheneth the inward parts again by binding. The green leaves of this tree applied to tumours discusses them and takes off inflammations. I mean, when you consider most conditions you've got is inflamed something. You know, anything in the ear that's... I use... what did I use? I used... Oh, shit. Manuka honey. And... what's it called that bees make? I can't think of its name. I forgot. I might remember. And they're anti-inflammatories. Oh, and turmeric. Turmeric's an anti-inflammatory as well. What is it that bees make? Oh, for God's sake. Oh. And I used that when I had my lung infection a few years ago, and it worked a treat. Being put into travellers' shoes, they ease pain and remove weariness. A black colour like ink is made with the bark of alder rubbed off with a rusty iron and infused in water for some days. Some use it to dye. If the bark thereof or hereof be boiled with agrimony or wormwood, dodder, hops, and some fennel, with smallage, endive and succory roots, my God, that's a hell of a concoction, and a reasonable draught taken every morning for some time together, it is very effectual against the jaundice, dropsy, and the evil disposition of the body, especially if some suitable purging medicine have been taken before to avoid the grosser excrements. It purgeth and strengtheneth the liver and spleen, cleansing them from such evil humours and hardness as they are afflicted with. It is to be understood that these things are performed by the dried bark, for the fresh green bark taken inwardly provoketh strong vomitings, pains in the stomach, and gripings in the belly. Yet if the decoction stand and settle 2 or 3 days until the yellow colour be changed black, it will not work so strongly as before. So it will work, but not as strong as before, but will strengthen the stomach and procure an appetite to meat. Vegans! Oh, you vegans! You need to be eating black alder tree. You're short of black alder tree, lads. That's why you're eating shit. The outer bark, contrary-wise, does bind the body and is helpful for all lasks and fluxes thereof. But this must also be dried first, whereby it will work the better. The inner bark thereof, boiled in vinegar, is an approved remedy to kill lice, to cure the itch, and to take away scabs by drying them up in a short time. You listen, you dirty girlies. Sorry. It is angularly good to wash the teeth, to take away the pains, to fatten those that are loose, to cleanse them and keep them found. The leaves are good fodder for kine, to make them give more milk. Kine? What the hell's a kine? I don't know what a kine is. Anyway, it's the bad when you don't understand your own language in it, you know what I'm saying? If in the springtime you use the herbs before mentioned, and will but take a handful of each of them, and to them add a handful of elder buds, and having bruised them all, boil them in a gallon of ordinary beer when it is new, and having boiled them half an hour, add to this 3 gallons more of beer, and let them work together, and drink a draught of this every morning, half a pint or thereabouts. So this is a license to get pissed in the morning. It is an excellent purge for the spring, to consume the phlegmatic quality the winter hath left behind, and withal keep your body in health, and consume those evil humours which the heat of summer will readily stir up. Now then, so that's 2 more, Black Alder Tree and Alexander. Very good for all things fantastic and amazing. In the biological system you're in as a means to live on the earth. So where are we, you nut jobs? I've just built my own camper for my full-time living, so that's very interesting. Yep, hey, remember, it's a resident, anything you live in, if it's a dwelling of any kind. Yeah, so dwell. You're not occupying, you're not resident, you dwell. That's another term you must use if you're using the law and not jumping into the legal lingo. Let's have a look. Make a day and night of it, Mew Pit. Yeah, by all means, chaps. Plenty of room here. I built a camper van in 92 and lived in Holland for 8 years. Not all in the van. Sweet, man. I love a bit of dandelion for the liver. Well, I have it all the time. So I have Evian and a pure dandelion and burdock cordial that I had. It's, what do they call them? I forgot what they call them. Got my memories crap tonight. Propolis. That's what the bees make. A great anti-inflammatory. Propolis. You can get it in lozenges. You can just... Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways. Propolis. Great anti-inflammatory. I love the lifestyle change. It's relieved all my stress. The Lion's Tooth Dandelion. We'll chat. Tomorrow, Mew Pit. Available all day, nothing better to do. Oh, you guys are having a chit chat. Propolis, that's the one. Propolis. Brilliant shit. Bees make it. Anything bees make is good in my book. After I live with them. Remember in the other property? The bees were my friend. Now we've got ants. They're actually alright, actually. They're pretty good. Cheeky little things, but they're not in my cupboards. Cotton polis. Bees make pollen or propolis. Obviously. Dropsy. Well, I'm not sure what Dropsy is myself. It's all lingo, innit? What is it? What do you think it is? WJ, by the way. Collect pollen, Andrea, make honey. Are we vegan or are we hamsters? Different bats than vegans. Honestly, I've never come across such a bunch of numpties in my life. The woke generation. Yeah, you've walked right down the fucking path of numptiness, my friend. You don't know shit. FYI, guys. What's that mean? FYI, what's that? I'm not good at these abbreviations. Tomorrow's full moon is a flower moon, also known as a planting moon. Yeah, well, it's early hours, isn't it? 5 something in the morning. It crosses. Get your seeds in. Well, isn't it the case you plant in the waxing and you harvest in the waning? So you'll be collecting after the full moon. If you clock 2 weeks easterly, you'll be fine. Propolis oil, which is mad, kind of goes solid milky in water like Pernod. Oh, yeah. Drops is when we are clumsy. I'm not sure. Oh, it might be actually. Yeah, it could be because the old way were just simplicity, self-explanatory, weren't they? There were none of this shenanigans going on back in the day. So you might be right. So it's another nice kind of way of being fruit bat, isn't it? Halfway to fruit bat. We'll use that. Yeah. So drops here we can say is halfway to fruit bat, kind of thing. FY, all for your information. Okay, I need to get up to screen on these alphabet stuff because I really know. Is that it? Are we done? Of course it is. I mean, I've got a report on site showing what happens if you eat seeds because they have a natural poison in them. When you take it in and it turns to estrogen. Well, for females, you're going to get fat. But more than that, it's okay doing a vegan diet for maybe 2 months, 3 months to detox. But after that, you've lost so much of what you need, you're like a shadow of yourself. New Age Vegan Movement, engineered by Kissinger. Oh, yeah. In fact, that's what we're going to look at tonight, a Kissinger report. We'll save that till next week. Obviously, why they're attacking bee colonies, of course. Fruit bat, yeah, that's the name we use. Who won the Eurovision? Oh, would it be Ukraine? Well, of course it will fucking Ukraine, because they're best at music, it will. I mean, how many albums have you got at home from Ukraine artists? You know, come on, let's be honest about it. It's a complete load of shit, innit? I mean, and if you didn't notice that when that idiot won it with a beard, pretending to be a bird, I'm not holding much hope for you, for the future, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was Ukrainian. You know, they're full of shit in this Ukraine, you know. I mean, some of them soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers in Donbass are fighting, and they're fighting pretty well, to be honest. And the Russians are losing a lot of men, but they're wiping floor him. You know, they're having them. They did have a bit of a shindig the other week where they failed to cross the river, but the Ukraine had failed the week before. They just bombed the shit out of each other with artillery. Don't believe a word you see coming off media. It's all pish and garbage. But there is a war going on in the southeastern Donbass area as the Russians clear out the Ukrainian soldiers who have been murdering the Ukrainians in that area since 2014, and that is a fact. But of course, the laws are quite simple. You don't invade another country, so Vlad the Impaler is no better than NATO. No better at all than NATO. Breaharian for 7 months. Well, I was a vegetarian for 7 years. I'll never do it again. Ever. Would never do it again. Next Easter. No, what's happening next Easter? It's a bloody long time off, girl. We've got something to do yet. 10 months. Arms went numb. My might fixed it. Vitamin B12. Interesting experience and fairly meat 2 days a week is enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you for a second you eat shitloads of meat, but I love beef. I love chicken. I love turkey. I like liver. And as I've said, if you sweat a lot for whatever reason, whether you just have hot sweats at night or you're pretty active in one sport or another, you should take chicken livers at least twice a month because they just put every base mineral back in and every B vitamin. Everything that you lose every time you sweat. And that's why a lot of healthy people, a lot of fit people are not healthy. Aquarius has kicked in. I am Aquarius. I know the crack. I've got inside info. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm more interested in this a bit. Tomorrow. Tomorrow will do it for me. I'm looking forward to waking up. I'm going to get accosted. And that's what I enjoy doing in the morning. I wake up and then get on with whatever I'm doing in the day. Americans cross Kuwait in 5 days. We're believing that Russians can't take control of Ukraine. Well, it's just it's a game, and off that is all these shortages of food, the crashing economy, stock market, everything, energy. It's all bullshit. They just want to get rid of energy so they can have everybody die. 250 birthday Illuminati. Illuminati is a lot older than as a white, so my good man. 250 is a big number. Yeah, 7. Happy birthday to them. Happy birthday to them. Fuck them, I say. Anyway, that's me swearing, and I shouldn't be swearing. That's very naughty. So with that, chaps and chapesses, I'm going to say, till the next time.